Alright, go ahead.
Hello and welcome to the gorgeous Wagon Trail Campground in northern Door County. I am Kim Schultz and I will be telling you the story of the Korean Cinderella. Now we all know the story of Cinderella. There's Cinderella and then there's her evil stepmother and stepsisters. They don't like her very much. They make her work, basically function as their maid. Then one day a fairy godmother appears and grants Cinderella wishes to the ball. She gets her pumpkin carriage, her gorgeous dress, and her glass slippers. However, when the clock strikes midnight, it all goes away. So, as midnight approaches, Cinderella is running to get out of the ball, and she loses a slipper. Prince Charming eventually finds the slipper and brings it to the townspeople, where it fits Cinderella, and she lives happily ever after with him. But that's not quite how it worked in the Korean story. Korean story, our main character is Kong Ji. Now, it was many years ago. There was an old, retired official named Lee and his wife. They had lived together for 20 years but had no children. They really wanted one. His wife went to the temple often to pray for a child. And she also spent lots of money on expensive herbs and medicines, and including things like ginseng and others. Eventually, their prayers were answered and they were given this precious baby girl, Kong Ji. However, their happiness didn't last very long. Shortly after Kong Ji's 100-day birthday, her mother died. Her father was distraught, and the baby grew up never knowing her mom. However, with the help of the townspeople, Kong Ji grew into a healthy and beautiful young girl. By the time she was 10 years old, she was able to do all the cooking and the cleaning, the sewing, and take care of her father completely. She took care of the house. However, as she got older and older, closer to the age of marriage, her father began to worry what would happen to him when she moved out and got married. It was then that he consulted the town's matchmaker. At that point, her father decided to marry the town's widow, Pei Shi. Now, Pei Shi had a young daughter as well. Her name was Patji. Once Pei Shi moved in, she started taking over the chores of the house, taking care of the house, but she made Kong Ji do all of the chores and work from sun up to sundown. Now, Pei Shi and Patji were very jealous of Kong Ji's beauty, and they started calling her Dirty Pig. That was what she was known as to them. One day, Pei Shi brought the girls to her and said, "You are country girls. You need to learn how to work hard in the field." She handed Kong Ji an old wooden hoe and said, "Go over there, weed the farthest field, and do not come home until you're done." You see, the farthest field was the rockiest, hardest, and most difficult field to weed. Pei Shi knew that Kong Ji would be gone for a long time. To Patji, she said, "Weed this field here by the house, and don't forget to come in for lunch." Now, Kong Ji knew she wasn't getting any lunch, and she began on her way. Now, just after she started, she tried very hard, but the old wooden hoe, it broke. She sobbed and sobbed. She was just distraught, because she knew if she returned to the house without doing her work, she'd be whipped and sent to bed without supper. Soon, a black cow appeared. It was just out of nowhere. It was magical. And the cow walked to her and said, "My child, why are you crying so?" In a wonderment, between her sobs, Kong Ji told her the story. The cow said, "Child, go wash your face in the stream over there and come back." Kongji washed her face and came back much brighter, though still curious about the mysterious happenings of this talking cow. When she came back, the cow said, "Your good deeds and your love of your family, it has been noticed in heaven. You will be rewarded." With that, the cow disappeared. But behind it, it left a new iron hoe and a full basket of fruit. Now, with this new iron hoe, Kongji could easily finish the chores that she was given. And she walked back. She took the basket of fruit for her family. She didn't even eat it for herself. She wanted to share. She walked back and the gate was locked. When she arrived back at the house, Pei Shi was very upset. "Why are you back so early?" she said. "Did you actually do the chores that you were given?" "Well, yes, Mother," Kongji said. She's like, "And I brought you a basket of fruit." "You little pig, where did you steal that fruit from?" And Kongji was sent to bed without supper. Now, a few days after this happened, Pei Shi started Kongji on another hopeless mission. She handed her the jar to get water to collect in their large jar for the family. Kongji walked to the well and back and dumped it in the big jar. Walked to the well and back and dumped it in the big jar. However, no matter how many times she went, the large jar never filled. On her 10th time back, a large, bug-eyed, wide-mouthed toad appeared. It said, "Child, don't you know you will never fill that? There is a hole in it." Kongji was upset. She didn't know what to do, because she knew she was in trouble. Lots of trouble, if the jar did not end up filled. The toad said, "Please, tip the jar up on its side. Let me crawl underneath, and I will sit under the crack, and then you will be able to fill it with water." Kongji was shocked. She would never hurt the toad. She said, "No, I will not break your back. I'd rather break mine." The toad laughed at her and said, "Child, I have been around for over 100 years. I am strong enough to do this. Your love of your family is so strong. I will do it for you. Listen to me." And he crawled under the jar and sat underneath the crack. Kongji was then able to fill it with water. Now, Pei Shi knew that there was a crack in the jar, and she was very confused and very concerned. She was wondering, what magic does that little pig have? Now, soon after that, there was an exciting celebration happening. Kongji's uncle from her birth mom, her favorite uncle, was getting married, and there was going to be a big marriage feast. Kongji couldn't wait to go. Now, Pei Shi and Patji, they weren't invited, but they were going anyways because they wanted to. Now, Pei Shi said to Kongji, "Before you are allowed to leave, you must polish the rice in those 2 bags of rice, and you must weave these 40 feet of cloth on the loom." Kongji knew that was an impossible assignment, and she was very frustrated, but she wanted to go to the feast, so she tried. However, as soon as she laid the rice out to dry and to be husked, birds came. They came and they started pecking at it, and she tried to chase them away, and she chased them, but they just kept coming. And she knew she had been defeated. She was so tired, she curled up on the porch and fell asleep. later, she awoke. And she rubbed her eyes, and she couldn't believe her sight. There was a fairy, a mystical woman, weaving her fabric, and it was finished. And she had made her a new dress as well. And the rice, it had been polished too. The birds weren't actually eating it. They were husking it and polishing it. She couldn't believe it. She could go to the party. She asked the woman, "Who are you?" And the woman said, "I am from beyond the Milky Way. Your deeds have not gone unnoticed. You are being rewarded," and handed her the dress. So Kongji put on the dress and made her way toward her uncle's wedding feast in disbelief that she could actually go. She was skipping merrily down the road when she heard, "Make way, make way." The new governor was passing on a palanquin, and his servants were saying to make way. She was so surprised, but she jumped down and knelt down beside the road. However, she jumped so fast, one of her shoes fell and slipped into the nearby stream. She could do nothing but watch helplessly as her shoe floated away. But she was so excited, she hobbled on with one shoe, one stocking foot, and made it all the way to her uncle's wedding feast. Now at the feast, people talked about her. Some felt sorry for her because they knew what was happening in the house. Some just asked, "Why only one shoe?" Now, further down the road, the governor asked his servants to stop so they could rest. And he looked in the stream and saw a shoe. He had one of them get the shoe for him, and he said, "Find the woman this belongs to." The servant took the shoe and headed toward the town. There he found the wedding party. He took the shoe and he said, "Who does this belong to? It is a fair maiden. My master is impressed with her." Now, Kongji's stepmom, knowing the reward must be great for this, insisted that the shoe was hers. So she tried to squeeze her huge foot into the itty-bitty shoe. Eventually, the servant was like, "Woman, stop, or my master will put you in jail. It is clearly not yours." From the back of the crowd spoke up an old grandma. She said, "There is a maiden here without her shoe, but she is too quiet to say anything." The man went to Kongji with the shoe, and it fit. He said, "Come with me." And then she was put on a palanquin and carried to the governor. Now the new governor was so impressed with her and her love of her family and her beauty and her talent. He asked her father to marry, if he could have permission to marry her. The father said, "My child is not educated enough. She is just a poor farm girl." But the governor insisted. And with that, they were married, and they lived happily. They had 5 children, and the tale of Kongji spread far and wide, along with the goodness of her womanly virtues.